side again. We are very much, I don't know if this is the right side or the left side, but we're leaning. But I want to talk today about an interesting week. A little bit about things that happened, a little bit. I don't get nightmares often, but that's good. I had one, it was either, I'm not quite sure which evening it was. It could have been Saturday into Sunday, Sunday to Monday, or Monday to Tuesday last week. It was one of those dreams, I can't remember exactly which day it was. But it was weird, I don't get one often. The last one I had was over a year and a half previous. That was vivid, and this one was an interesting one. So I woke up, I remember parts of it to this day, even, that dream. And I was up like an hour and a half afterwards. My mind was just awake and alert. And I didn't really think much of it. You have these type of dreams like, things happen and stuff like that. And, dreams are a very interesting thing in that even scientists are trying to figure out, why do we dream? And what do we connect with when we dream? Is it merely the subconscious only, or does the subconscious able to act with other sorts of emotions and feelings and senses to pull interesting little things in and show you things? And look into the Bible and you see God uses dreams to deliver messages and things like that. And I'll say this way, because this is kind of a weird thing. Maybe it's just one huge, big coincidence. I don't know. The nightmare I had, and usually nightmares I have, are going to be end of the world type nightmares, like everything is doomed and stuff like that. Those are the ones I get. I don't get like the guy with like a machete or like the clowns like some people get. I don't get those. I just don't remember getting them. That's just not my nightmare. My nightmare is like ending of things and things that are out of my control. The lack of control is a nightmare for me, which is tough as a Christian because we put everything in God's control, right? That's difficult for me. I work upon that. But the dream I had was end of the world, and it involved aspects of my students in my school. And I was like, well, that's weird, but my students are part of my life. That's very important. Fast forward, Tuesday, it was around second period, and I got a little note. It was about third side student paper, middle of teaching. The one lady who runs the office came around and passed all teachers a note. And the note said, important meeting after school. The superintendent of schools will be there to respond to concerns. And that's all it said. And I was like, I had no concerns. We'll see what these concerns are. And of course, I'm teaching at a Catholic school. The superintendent is in charge of all the schools in the entire area type thing, which is from Steubenville all the way down through like Ironton and stuff like that, way down near Huntington, West Virginia, our side, Ohio side though, that side. And he's there, and all the major Catholic priests who oversee the school were there. We're thinking, well, this is interesting. And the superintendent proceeds to tell us they're closing down the high school. High school, no more. Come June 6th, you're all have a job, and the school is closing forever, type thing. So that was kind of a shock to the system, as far as how that goes. And the grade school might close too down there. So we'll see how those things develop. And it was an emotional time for the teachers. The students, of course, were a wreck for like the multiple days afterwards, because the school is a part of you, especially if you are a student at a school, especially if you're a junior in high school and have been promised by people who are now closing the school that you would definitely be able to graduate from there. So there's a lot of emotions and things, and a lot of weirdness about it. And there's a lot of things I can tell you about it that's not really sermon worthy, but it was weird. It was an interesting time, and we'll see how things develop from here. I have my own thoughts and emotions and thinkings, and of course, from that aspect, but it was interesting, the aspect I had that dream, like right before that. It might have been the night before. I'm not quite sure what day it fell on, because the whole week's like a big, whirl type aspect of my mind right now. But it was weird. And, I wondered, was there a message being given, or was, some sort of sense out there in my body with that sense to give me that dream? I don't know which answer is right there, but I know God uses things to give you a message, to give you a heads up on things. Me, I ignored that dream because I figured that's a dream. I figured, that means nothing. I thought. I'm up for like an hour and a half afterward trying to go force myself back to sleep because I was up a little bit later than usual. have to get up at 5:30, get ready for school, and it's now 3, it's now 3:30, it's now 4, I gotta get back to sleep. So I'm focused on that more than anything else. I ponder if I had thought further, my soul and spirit would have given me more things about that. I ponder, I don't know, but it was interesting. So that made me certain of this morning's message. We're going to talk this morning about dreams. I think that's got to be the message this morning, about some dreams. So the background I chose is of nighttime, of stars, because we dream usually what? At night. Sometimes during the day, sometimes a little driving, that's risky, very risky, but some try that. Now this is actually one of my favorite constellations, also in the background. It's one of the ones I was taught early on, and every time I see it, I just go, I don't know, I just always do. Orion. See the 3 stars here in the middle to the right? That's Orion's belt. So anyway, Orion. That's the background there. Looking at dreams this morning, we see that God has used dreams throughout history to give messages. And when we think about dreams and messages, there are some people in the Bible that come to mind first and foremost. I want to focus on one of those people today, just one. Because I could spend hours about all the guys about dreams and things like that, but this one is very interesting because of how God used him as a person also. And I think he is, of course, known as being one of the most colorful guys in all Scripture. Colorful guy. Anybody care to guess who it is?
Joseph.
Good guess, but it's Joseph. Yes. Yeah. Also very colorful. Yes. I didn't think. That would work too. Yeah. But I think of Joseph because Joseph dreams is very interesting. So Joseph is an example of someone through whom God used dreams and even their interpretations. Because God gave him dreams as messages for him, and also gave or spoke through him with the power and ability to interpret other people's dreams so they would know the message God was giving them. So we're going to start way back in Genesis, and we're going to stay in Genesis the entire time of this morning's message, starting in chapter 37, verses 6, 7, and 9. Now, Joseph is the last son of many sons. Many sons of his father together. Many sons. All right? As well as various daughters and things like that. And Joseph was the one that his dad liked the best. And he was honest about this, too. So if you're the other brothers, you'd probably be a little upset about that. But Joseph was special in many, many ways. In Genesis 37, he talks to his brothers about some dreams he had. Now, Joseph was very young at this point in time. The exact age, I'm not quite sure, but he's younger. And here in these verses it says, this is Joseph, said to them, his brothers, listen to this dream I had. We were binding sheaves of grain out in the field, when suddenly my sheaf rose, stood upright, while your sheaves gathered around mine and bowed down to it. Then he had another dream, and he told it to his brothers. Listen, he said, I had another dream, and this time the sun and the moon and 11 stars were bowing down to me. So he wants to share his dream with his brothers, how happy he's about his dream. His brothers heard these dreams and were like, what are you trying to tell us? Because already they've got ego problems. Because Joseph's looked as being a special child, and they say, well, you mean you're better than me? Makes you better than me. They're getting upset. They don't take too kindly to this message about his dreams. Not in the least of it. They go out to the field one day, very, very, very far off. And they get an idea, let's kill him. That's their thought. They say, it's over. He's done. Let's kill him. Get him out. We can't live with this guy anymore. He's got to be gone. Well, they said, well, let's not actually kill him. Let's take his garment, put some blood on it, and say he died. We'll just drop him off in the cistern, and he'll just die there. So that was their thought and idea. But then they find people and say, forget throwing him in the cistern. Let's sell him. So they sold him to people who took him down to Egypt. Meantime, he goes, and it's an interesting little story. We'll get there in a second. But his brothers do not take too kindly, all right? So they get the whole story. They go back to the father saying, look, here is his garment. It's covered in blood. They tell the story that they concoct. His father believes it, of course. And they think Joseph is dead. Gotten long away. Yet, he gets sold to various people and eventually becomes a part of Pharaoh's household as a servant to Pharaoh. And things arise where he's up there, he's alone with Pharaoh's wife. Pharaoh's wife concocts a scheme. Joseph doesn't go along with it, so she says he tried to have his way with me, so Pharaoh banishes him, puts him in a dungeon in a prison. Because Joseph had risen up from being forgotten as dead by his family to still being forgotten as dead, or so they think. He rises up in prominence, but as a servant in Egypt. And now he's in prison. Let's look at Genesis chapter 40. Let's fast forward. Chapter 40, verses 8 through 19. Joseph is in the dungeon, in prison, with two other people who just came in from Pharaoh's house, the chief cupbearer and the chief baker. And they both have dreams. They tell them their dreams. No one can tell them what happened. So then they start talking to Joseph. We both had dreams, they answered, but there is no one to interpret them. Because back at this point in time, if you had a dream, well, know what it meant, you would go to the magicians. They say, okay, here's what this means. You saw a red shield. Okay, that means this. You'll type it. They'll go through line by line. Kind of like a lot of books that are on the shelves today do the same type thing. The thing has really gone away. That was the thing. And now they tried it and couldn't get an interpretation. Then Joseph said to them, do not interpretations belong to God? Tell me your dreams. Notice what he does there. He doesn't say, don't worry, I got you. I can do this. Not about him. And he says, they come from God. This isn't by man. You're chasing the wrong person. He says, not by man. Even I can't do it, but there's a God who can. So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream. He said to him, in my dream, I saw a vine in front of me. And on the vine were 3 branches. As soon as it budded, it blossomed, and its clusters ripened into grapes. Pharaoh's cup was in my hand, and I took the grapes, squeezed them into Pharaoh's cup, and put the cup in his hand. Nice little dream, right? Imagery is kind of good, especially for a chief cupbearer, because his task was to present to Pharaoh a cup to drink from. That was his job. And he was in prison for doing something wrong with that. And he's dreaming about this, and it sounds prosperous, right? Joseph says to him, this is what it means. The 3 branches are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift up your head and restore you to your position. And you will put Pharaoh's cup in his hand, just as you used to do when you were his cupbearer. But when all goes well with you, remember me and show me kindness. Mention me to Pharaoh. Get me out of this prison. For I was forcibly carried off in the land of the Hebrews. And even here, I have done nothing to deserve being put in a dungeon. So he told the chief cupbearer, hey, don't forget about this. And there's a reason for that. Let's fast forward to the story real quickly. But he's saying, this was wrong, but I'm still here. He doesn't begrudge anybody. He even helps the person who oversees the prison. Doesn't try to escape, actually helps him run it to some degree. When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given a favorable interpretation, he says to Joseph, I too had a dream. On my head were 3 baskets of bread. In the top basket were all kinds of baked goods for Pharaoh. But the birds were eating them out of the basket, on my head. Well, that's a vision, right? Imagine that for a lifetime thing. There's a basket up here with bread and birds going, pow, 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 pow. That'd be an experience. That'd wake me up probably too. Joseph says this is what that means. The 3 baskets are 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift off your head and hang you on a tree. And the birds will eat away your flesh. Whew. Not quite as rosy a picture as the chief cupbearer got. But all these things came to pass just as Joseph had told him. Again, through the power and might of God. There was a wake-up call for these 2 people. So you see, God not only blessed Joseph with messages through dreams, but also with interpretations of dreams. And he would use this to share news, both good and bad. Good to the cupbearer, bad to the baker. And so seen here soon, good and bad to another very high-ranking official. Fast forward, Joseph rises in stature, but still in the dungeon, still in prison. Because Pharaoh put him there with no timeline. If he said, you jail. You, prison. You, dungeon. Till when? Doesn't say. Which means you're there till he says you come out. That was life. But he rose up there and became like second to the head guy in charge of the prison, but still being a prisoner. Here's what happens then. Fast forward quite some time. Pharaoh has a dream and talks to magicians and sorcerers and different people, and they can't get him an interpretation. And then with him, the cupbearer hears this and says, oh, I'm sorry, I know a guy. I've met a guy. He's in the dungeon now. He's in the prison. You get him. He gave me interpretation. So chapter 41, verse 14 to 32. Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he is quickly brought from the dungeon. When he had shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh, who says to Joseph, I had a dream, and no one can interpret it. But I have heard it said of you that when you hear a dream, you can interpret it. Notice he rises Joseph up in stature, and Joseph could have said, yes, I can. He does not. He says, I cannot do it. I cannot do it. He replies to Pharaoh, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. That's the power of Joseph. No ego, complete humility, saying, it's not me, this isn't about me, I can't even do it, but God can. God can. Then Pharaoh says to Joseph, in my dream, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River. When out of the river there came up 7 cows, fat and sleek, and they grazed among the reeds. After them, 7 other cows came up, scrawny and very ugly and lean. I had never seen such ugly cows in all the land of Egypt. The lean, ugly cows ate up the 7 fat cows that came up first. But even after they ate them, no one could tell that they had done so. They looked just as ugly as before. Then I woke up. In my dreams I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and good, growing on a single stalk. After them 7 other heads sprouted, withered and thin and scorched by the east wind. The thin heads of grain swallowed up the 7 good heads. I told this to magicians, but none could explain it to me. Then Joseph said to Pharaoh, the dreams of Pharaoh are one and the same. God has revealed to Pharaoh what he is about to do. The 7 good cows are 7 good years. And the 7 good heads of grain are 7 years. It is one and same dream. The 7 lean, ugly cows that came up afterward are 7 years. And so are the 7 worthless heads of grain, scorched by the east wind. They are 7 years of famine. It is just as I said to Pharaoh. God has shown Pharaoh what he is about to do. 7 years of great abundance are coming throughout the land of Egypt, but 7 years of famine will follow them. Then all the abundance in Egypt will be forgotten, and the famine will ravage the land. The abundance in the land will not be remembered, because the famine that follows it will be so severe. The reason the dream was given to Pharaoh in 2 forms is that the matter has been firmly decided by God, and God will do it soon. Joseph was giving the interpretation from God to Pharaoh about very unsettling news. Very unsettling. This was to run away through times of famine, in that he gave Pharaoh a heads up, and Joseph was the pathway to receive the interpretation. Joseph was a person chosen by God to give this message. God gave a message to Pharaoh. The person who could tell him about it was Joseph, and Joseph alone. And Pharaoh recognized this. Joseph was put in charge. Pharaoh said, okay, here's what's going to happen then. Then Joseph, you're in charge. Make sure we get a big harvest. Keep the harvest. Gather up the harvest. Store it up. And be in charge of giving it out to people according to various needs and various times in the time of famine. In other words, make preparation. Get ready. Get prepared. Get it all balled up so that when the time comes, it's there to be used. Otherwise, what happens? You get so lackadaisical with the harvest and things. You don't store it up. Famine comes. You have nothing. And the people all suffer and they perish. God provided the way out. Pharaoh got the message. Joseph delivered it with fullness of transparency. Joseph was put in charge of this effort. And as history told it, his brothers would even have to come down to Egypt to get food. They, thinking Joseph had died, had to approach Joseph, had to kind of bow down unto him as he was being one greater, just as the dreams Joseph was given when he was young and told his brothers. They came to fruition after this entire story. God has plans. We don't always know those plans. Sometimes it gives us some glimpses of what's to come. And of course, we have to respond in certain ways, but recognizing that nothing can thwart these plans, these ideas, these intentions. Even if people do things to frustrate the will of God and refuse to follow what God desires of and for from them, God can use those things to build us up, make us stronger, if we heed Him, His wisdom, His goodness, mercy, grace, and love. At this time, we'll get ready to partake together in the invitation decision for those outside